Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sincerely So podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest joining us. He is a author, a speaker, and also the co-founder of Human Op Technologies. We have Wei Houng joining us today. Wei, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lexi. It's great to be here. Super excited, especially after our pre-warm up podcast before we hit record.
Yes, yes. Me and Wei were able to have a little conversation before we started recording, and I am so excited for the insight that he is going to be able to give us today.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Yes. So before we get super into what human op consists of, I do just want you to give us a little insight into your journey of what led you to where you are right now.
hmm Yeah. So I don't know if we have enough time in a podcast to share my entire life story. So I will concatenate and package it up in a nutshell as easily as possible. So let me just start off by saying I wouldn't wish my life's journey actually on my worst enemy. The amount of cathartic rock bottom moments I've had to grow from has been a lot. I mean, I was on a previous interview and I was like started counting because I never really counted. It's like there had to be at least 4, 5 rock bottom moments. And if you think about
Mhm.
what those rock bottom moments are typically, I mean, you name it, most likely I've been there, right? The homelessness piece, the being broke piece, flirting with bankruptcy type of thing, and then flirting with not wanting to be here anymore type of thing. You name
Mhm.
it, most likely I've been there. And that's kind of what inspired me to say, why does it, at least for me, why is it that my only motivation for change and to step into a different version of myself is through catharsis? Like I have to hit rock bottom so hard for me to set up, okay, finally, I got to do something about this, and I'm realizing that not everybody's designed that way. Some people are pretty proactive and they will like invest right from the get-go, recognizing that somebody else has been there. I don't need to go there. But
Mhm.
my journey really begins way back in junior high when I was one of those Breakfast Club kids that had trouble fitting in, right? In fact, I was
Mhm.
getting bullied to a point where I just thought there was something wrong with me. Like I'm broken and I don't know what to do. And then I was in a class where they were passing out different topics or giving us a sheet that we could choose topics to do a report on. And I chose one called mesmerism or hypnosis. And I say, cool, let me learn about this stage show that they do where to hypnotize people. Wow. What I didn't know was that it was so much deeper than that, right? Mesmerism is named after a guy named Mesmer, who actually was healing people back in the days, who he thought was using stones to do it, but he was actually doing early forms of hypnosis. And then as time went on, they realized that there is a distinct uh, difference between two layers of the human mind, which is the conscious mind and the subconscious, right? The unconscious
Mhm.
mind. And how much more powerful, 10 times more powerful the unconscious mind is that is guiding us to our emotional responses, our ultimate final decisions, our programming, our behavior patterns. It's all dictated down there. So when I started to
Mhm.
learn that, I did my report, which is great, but I kept going deeper on my own. I went to the library, got dropped off. If people still use libraries, I got dropped off to the library, and I was like just researching. I was rabid about it, because the motivation at the time was I think I can fix myself, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought I needed to be fixed. Fast forward where we are today, we have a piece of technology that basically in the world that I live in, we realize that we can give people an understanding that we're not broken. We're not needing to be fixed. We're just needing to be understood and seen and heard. And that's if you go back to where I was struggling when I was younger. And the funny thing was I thought I was going to fix myself, but in fact, going that deep, it just made me weirder. Because what junior high kid goes into the deep understanding how to unlock the catacombs of the deep unconscious mind?
Yeah, I love that though. When you say weirder, it's just like more authentic, like more you. You went on a journey to try and fix yourself and you actually just became more yourself because that's all you needed to do. And
Right.
I love that you're so just authentic and open about your journey and about, I hit rock bottom more times than I can count. Because even though, as you're saying, some people are very proactive about it, a
Yeah.
lot of people do have that mindset and, those experiences where they're like, I thought I was doing better, and then it fell apart again
Mm-hmm.
and again. It's happened multiple times. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the human experience. And for a lot of us, that's what we have to go through to be able to be built in to a better version of ourselves and a better version of ourselves. And even
Right.
in some cases, lead us into unlocking, what is our subconscious mind? How can we control our thoughts? How
Right.
can we change it?
Right.
So let's get into what is human op and what does that consist of?
Yeah. So human op is a shortened version of what we originally started to call our company was Human Optimization Technologies. Really long. And so I said, you know what? Let's be a Google. Let's call it human op. Let's just cut it off and just call it human op. And it actually kind of caught on pretty well. So human op is kind of like a culmination of so there's four co-founders, and one of them is the creator and the inventor of the algorithm behind our technology, which is a
Oh, wow.
20 years of research, patent about 10 years ago. And it's the only assessment tool for human beings that is patented because it's not based on psychology. It's not based on psychometrics. It's actually based on science, physics
Mhm.
primarily, and then mathematics, right? Um, and the reason why it was created was Dr. Zana Hackett, who's one of my other co-founders who invented the technology 20 plus years ago. She
Mhm.
said, well, there's a lot of these assessment tools out there that are basing their results on observed patterns in human behavior, right? So based on their perspectives and their opinions and their psychometry, which is better than nothing, okay? Better than
Mhm.
not even trying to figure people out at all.
Yeah.
But think about this for a moment. They're basing it on probably what is the most volatile side of human existence, right? Our perspectives and our
Yeah.
opinions can change on a dime, right? Through one traumatic event, we can completely change our entire outlook on life altogether, right?
Yeah.
And we like even from one day to the next, like when people say like, "Oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today," is that why you're just filtering everything through this muck and mire today because you're in a bad mood? It's like, yes. So if you took an assessment that day that's based on your psychometry and your perspective of the world, it's going to be vastly different than when you're having an amazing day, right?
Yeah.
Unicorns and rainbows one day and the other day, and it's like, why are my results different? And
Mhm.
so that began the journey behind the technology of human op. And so Dr. Zana said, well, how do we calibrate on the part of human beings that changes the least over time? And what is that? Well, if we forget somebody's name, how do we still know we know them? We physically recognize them,
Oh,
right?
yeah, the recognition.
So if just to kind of put things in perspective, like we rely so much on modern language today, we forget that there are some fundamental, reliable, timeless methods to understand people that goes beyond language. Modern language was invented, what, 50,000 years ago, right? Which is a long time. And we think, wow, 50,000 years. That being said, how long have human beings have been around the planet? 2 million years. So
Mhm.
for about 1.95 million years, we didn't have language. How the heck did we survive, right?
Yeah.
We survived by doing what everything else still does in nature. We looked into nature. We looked at each other, right? People didn't start looking like each other because they laid down country lines and culture shaped how they showed up in the world. No, we were already tribing with like attraction, like resonance, right? And then when they laid down the country lines, they said, oh, okay, great. Well, then here are the countries. But we were already tribing in those areas. And that's why, and because we stayed in those country lines at that point, now we propagated more and more of those similar type of characteristic traits, which then led to the cultivation of culture and society, and then language then starts to distort everything. But that's a different story. Uh, so fundamentally, what we have done, and I love it when Dr. Zana says this, when people ask, "Oh, this is your technology," she goes, "Well, not really. We've just figured out how to translate what nature's had been telling us since day one of our existence." Now we have this beautiful tool called language that can help translate it even better than grunts and clicks and however we were communicating through nature before, right? But now we can take it to a higher level of precision and accuracy with language, using language for what it was meant to be done to help advance us versus create weird distortions in the world and cause weird traumas, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of times we do forget of, what did our ancestors do way at the beginning, or we don't even think about how other species in nature communicate, or maybe
Hmm.
we think they don't even communicate just because they can't verbally speak. We don't even think
Right.
of our natural instincts that are
Hmm.
embedded in all of our DNA. And so
Right.
I love that you guys were able to tune into that and be like,
Uh-huh.
hey, with our technology that we have now and with the knowledge we have now, how
Right.
can we start integrating this again?
Yeah, reconnect back to nature. And what's so beautiful about this is when people take the assessment, which is free, by the way. So if you're hearing this, go take it.
Go take it. This is your sign.
It is that when they get their results, the majority of the time, because our instinct is still there, it's still in our DNA, like you were saying, they'll hear the results like, oh my God, it's validating. It's not so much like, oh, I didn't know that about me. It's more like, oh, that explains this. That explains that. That explains why I always don't like doing this and I still get pushed to do it. Why am I still doing it? And this is why I'm burning out. You know?
Hmm.
And so it gives this clear, objective blueprint for every human being on the planet. And because if you look around the room, everybody fundamentally, physically looks different.
Yeah.
We've cracked that code. And on top of that, nobody gets the same result. 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion different results. So
Yeah.
it's finally giving an opportunity because I think the biggest challenges right now in the world today, especially with the youth and the younger generation, is that they're struggling so hard to find uniqueness in self, right? And it's kind of what we were talking about the matrix, right? It's forcing that sameness. We can define that in a little bit, but so what we're now giving the scientifically giving people the opportunity to do is to have permission and license to take full ownership of their unique nature and start to masterfully create a life that is in alignment with their nature versus trying to buy into different rhetoric or different types of dogmas about what it means to be human, right?
Yeah, I love that you say that. It's something we already have because, like you were saying, so many people are searching to be unique and be authentic, and they're like, what does this even mean? And it really means just coming back to who we are
Hmm.
in our DNA and just
Hmm.
what makes us who we are as a person. And
Right.
so I do want to touch a little more on you were saying breaking out of the matrix. For maybe our audience that isn't familiar with the idea of what the matrix
Right.
is, what is a brief overview of what that consists of?
Yeah. Well, if you want to watch a documentary on it, just watch the movie The Matrix.
True.
Yeah, yeah. But if you haven't seen The Matrix, how we've eventually yeah, this is a funny story. I used to do these talks all the time, and I always make these side jokes about The Matrix. And there was one group that was really relatively young, and I was they were born after the first Matrix came out, basically. And then
Hmm.
so I was making all these comments about the Matrix, and they were laughing about it, but they weren't really laughing about it. It was just kind of like a polite chuckle or whatever. And
Yeah.
then I realized at one point I paused. I was like, you know what? Something's off. And let me ask you guys a question. How many of you have actually seen The Matrix, the movie? You guys know it's a movie, right? Like two hands out of the entire room, two hands raised. I was like, so
Wow.
nobody else has seen The Matrix? It's like, so you guys were just being polite because I'm making all these jokes about, okay, I have to rewind this and
Yeah,
talk
you're like, wait a
about
minute, let's go
I
back.
have to redo my whole thing now to use different jokes. But
Uh-huh.
but so what out of that, what we've learned to do is define the matrix based on kind of like a way to encapsulate what the matrix actually is for those who haven't seen the movie and have that visceral experience watching it. The matrix is a system of culture and society, a blending of all that, and within civilization that promotes forms of burnout.
Hmm.
It actually forces sameness. And eventually, as time goes on, due to the desire to create perceived safety, chips away at your joy and purpose. And so, as time goes on, and the longer you stay in the matrix, that's typically what happens. And we see it all the time, right? A lot of
Yeah.
us have experienced it. Those of us who've
Mhm.
worked in corporate America and have prioritize paying bills over, actually looking at, well, what is my journey in life going to be, right? Instead
Yeah.
of doing both, right? So that is essentially what the matrix is all about. And what we do is we have the tool to help people kind of, if should they decide to break out of the matrix and start to
Yeah.
create a world that is independent of the matrix.
100%. I love that you say that because I think once individuals become aware of what the matrix is, they see it in our society. They see it in their day-to-day life, the hustle culture, the nine
Yeah.
to five, the burnout that
Mm-hmm.
is normalized. It's supposed to be normal now to feel all these
Ah,
negative emotions and feel
yeah.
so horrible about yourself. And once people realize, why do I feel this way? Why am I like this? It's because that's what's been pushed on them.
Yeah.
And so I love that you guys have provided an outlet where people can say, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to follow this rhetoric anymore. I want to subscribe to a different version of my life.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of times people will do that, but because there historically hasn't been an easy way to do that, like to answer the question, well, how do I do that?
Hmm.
Right? I'm
Yeah.
recognizing, which is the first step, self-awareness, right?
Yes.
But beyond self-awareness, there needs to be some kind of pathway to get out of that. Otherwise, we will default back into it. So it doesn't matter how
Hmm.
self-aware you are. If you don't do anything about it, you're back into Matrix again, right? Because
Hmm.
you got to move forward somehow. And human beings are beautiful like that. They're very adaptable. So adaptation steps in, and so we go into this comfort mode and just run the hamster wheel because somebody taught us that when in doubt, just go back to default.
Yeah.
Right? So what we've done is we've over the years, over the last couple of decades, we've did our best to distill it down to create more and more simplicity, understanding how to decipher the results that we get for people because there's so many variables at play. I mean, in the beginning, prior to the last couple of years, we were running this whole business as a consultative model, and it was really expensive, and it's only the people who could afford it could have access to it, which like really bummed me out because what I wanted to do when I found it 10 years ago and met Dr. Zana and Lisa and the people, other co-founders, I said, I I think this should be in the hands of every human being on the planet. This is how
Yeah.
we create planetary change. This is how we really help humanity step into its true role on the planet, which is being caretakers of the planet versus, plunderers of the planet. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like you were saying, if you are self-aware and you're not taking any action on it, you will go back to default because, like you were saying, that's what we have been taught to do. And
Hmm.
so, using resources such as human op, individuals are able to see, okay, what action moves can I do to
Right.
be able to continue to break out of this and make the choice to every day continue
Yeah.
to live more intentionally and more in alignment.
Yeah. And to what you were saying, that the question's like, why am I doing this? Why? Because I don't like doing this. It doesn't feel good. The reason why they keep doing it because nobody answers that question, why are they doing that? We
Yeah.
actually answer that question within the results session. They're like, this is why this makes you tired because it's not authentic to you. These activities do not feed you authentically. And that's why it takes more energy to do it than someone else who it's an authentic activity for. And then so what they get to start doing is start to trim the fat of what doesn't serve them and start to massively kind of identify these are the things that I can do in any industry that will keep me optimized and keep me motivated so I don't burn out. I can sustainably operate at a higher level every single day. Right.
Yes. Wei, the last thing I want to kind of pick your brain on is we've mentioned burnout a little bit throughout the episode, and
Hmm.
you have talked a lot about how burnout is just kind of your body symbolizing to you that something needs to change, or it's kind of just trying to communicate with you.
Right.
So, what would you say burnout really is?
So it's kind of like what we were saying earlier. Burnout. See, here's the beautiful thing. The pros and cons of being human is the pro is we're amazing and we can be taught and trained to do anything. The con is
Mhm.
we're amazing and we can be taught and trained to do anything, right?
Yeah.
We are all physically designed differently. And so I could live the same lifestyle and do the same trainings as Usain Bolt, but I guarantee every time he race, he's going to win. Why? He's physically designed for that type of activity more
Hmm.
so than I am. Now, I'm not saying I'm slow, I'm no slouch, but he's just designed more optimally, right? And
Yeah.
so when it comes to that, that's applicable to every activity in life. There are certain things that people who are amazing at creating order. And so the science behind all that has to do with nuclear forces. So I'm going to explain burnout scientifically so that we can finally put it to rest. Like, this is why it happens, right? So you're
Yes.
sitting on a chair right now. I'm sitting on a chair
Mhm.
right now, and we're having this conversation, right? And if we didn't have to cut the podcast off, we could probably keep talking till the cows come home and have plenty of energy
100%.
to do it. Right? Geek
Yes.
out on this, just go deep, right? Now,
Uh-huh.
let's have the same conversation, you and me, except now we are standing on a floating log in the middle of a running river. How long do you think we'll be able to have that same conversation before we start to get really tired?
Yeah, definitely not as long, not
Right.
nearly as long.
That is a kind of like a metaphor to explain how nuclear forces within our molecular structure works. Nuclear forces in our molecules has to do with stability. It contributes to stability. Nuclear forces have a strong state and weak state expression, okay, in terms of science. So when it's operating in a strong state, there's higher stability in our molecular structure. Our bodies are made up of molecules. And when the molecules are stable, it doesn't take as much energy to do the day-to-day stuff. When we do activities that bring the nuclear forces of our drivers into the weak state, that then starts to create instability in our molecular structure. So the same activities that we're doing, but because our molecular structure now is less stable, we need to expend and use more energy to do the same things.
Yeah.
So why people burn out is when they're doing activities that are actually contributing to the destabilization of the molecular structure. So it takes more energy to get it done. There are those who figured out how to do things every single day that keep their nuclear force drivers in the strength. And those are the people that at the end of the day have as much energy as they have in the beginning of the day,
Hmm.
right? Because they're being very optimized and efficient with their energy. So scientifically, I just explained why people burn out, why people don't burn out, and it has to do with the activities that we are naturally designed to thrive in versus the ones that we don't thrive in. Why, how do I figure that out? Well, take the assessment. That's the easiest way.
True. And like you said, it's free. So for all of our audience who is listening, if you feel like you are constantly getting stuck in burnout and you're not sure exactly what to do, you kind of feel like you're in a hole,
Mm-hmm.
take this assessment, gain some insight into your life, into maybe the activities that you are doing in your day to day are not serving you. Like Wei was saying, they might just be draining you more of your energy. And it
Mm-hmm.
really is such a testament to the fact that when we're out of alignment, we will feel drained. It's just
Yep.
how it is.
Yeah.
And I love
It's
that you were able to
nature and
give us the
science.
science. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's literally just the science behind it.
Yeah, and in our headquarters here in the Silicon Valley area, so if you're ever in town, we do weekly free workshops where we teach people how to use the technology on to solve specific problems. So if you are in the neighborhood or if you come in town and it happens to be a Thursday night or something like that, then come on
Mhm.
in and drop in and work with us on, through the workshop to just how to use the technology to make your life better. If you are living in the area, then
Yes.
come on by and say hi.
Yes, for my California friends, this is your sign. Go and stop in one night.
Yep. And then whenever you're in
Absolutely.
town, Lexi,
Thank
definitely have to stop in.
100%. I'm like, this is my sign. I need to go back and visit California ASAP so that I
There you
can go
go.
and do that.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Wei, for joining us today. Like you said, we could talk about this for hours, honestly, this subject. And I would love to do a part two to this episode. Maybe I
Sure.
will have to come to California and to come to
Hey,
the
yeah.
headquarters so that we
Yeah. You could
can
sit
we
down. I
can
have a
come
whole
see it.
podcast section. We could sit down and just do it live and do it in person.
Yes, that would be perfect. So all my audience, please be looking forward to that. And thank you, Wei, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Lexi. This was great.
Yes, and I will see you guys next week.